I've addressed your group, you're right, a couple of times. And I echo Eric's sentiment. He and I feel like I've grown up in the business with Eric. He was here when I was here. He was absolutely dominant when I came into the business, had the biggest, baddest groups and teams in the entire company. And, a lot of people don't realize how many of the OGs that Eric Mealy has recruited. And so when you look at stock value and you're feeling blessed, you can thank Eric Mealy for that. So stoked to be able to work alongside people like Eric and you guys, and just so fortunate and so blessed. And I mean that, from the very deepest place inside of me. I think every single day how fortunate we are to be working in a place like Vivint. And, Eric's celebrating like 35 years here. And I'm in my 20th this year. And so if you guys are lucky enough to be around as long as we have, I really feel like you'll share the same sentiment that we are just so fortunate and so blessed to be able to call a place like Vivint home. And if it has anything to do with Eric and I, we will keep this place very much the same. We'll continue to innovate, come up with better products and services. Eric has been such an advocate for the sales force forever and ever. And really, you guys should just count your blessings every day that you're affiliated with a person like Eric, I think. And I'm grateful to be here and share, but I feel like I sit at the feet of giants anytime I have to get on here with people like Eric and Tag and Colby and Brock and some of these absolute beasts that you guys have inside of Summit. So with that, I want to just hop right in. This was actually a training that I gave a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, at a Tuesday night training in Provo. And when Eric asked me to do this, I just make a habit of saving my sales trainings. And this was actually the first one that I pulled up, and I started going through it, and I got fired up. And so this kind of 200 mindset, this is an exciting topic. I actually think the exact same mindset that makes a 200 account rep also makes a 300 account rep. And I want to share that with you guys tonight. Eric mentioned that I was a good sales rep, and I appreciated him introducing me. I think I'm one of a handful of guys that have ever sold over 3,000 accounts. And I actually did that my first 10 years that I was at Vivint. I'm somewhere currently between 3,000 and 3,500. You'll probably see the number at home opener. And I haven't run teams or been on doors in a minute now with the position that I'm in. But the thing that I love about sales is that it's truly like riding a bike. If I went out today and started knocking doors, these principles that I'm sharing with you, while I am old Uncle Rico and I could talk about how good I once was and all that, and I certainly do, I feel like I don't feel like, I know I would go out and absolutely dominate. And so while I'm going to share with you some mindset principles, I also get really bored with just mindset stuff. And so I am going to share some of these with you, but I'm actually going to give you guys some really practical tools before the end of this call. Stuff that I know if you implement it into your sales approach, like tomorrow, you will get measurable results right away. And I know that because it worked for me. So the 200 mindset, and I know I have like the audience here. Some of you are year round. Most of you are probably summer. And while at Vivint, if you're year round, there really is no preseason or postseason. It's just the season when you're kind of working year round. But for others, it's the summer. For all intents and purposes, you guys know, preseason is prior to April 15th. And I think it's so important, no matter what kind of walk you are at Vivint, if you're a rookie, if you're a sophomore, if you're a 10-year veteran, this job won't become a career and you won't ever make it to the next level if you don't do these 4 things. Number 1 specifically, and let me just tell you really quickly, my wife at one point in time probably hated the job. And while she's always been super grateful for it, there were times that we really struggled, and I'll never forget it. I was in the job a few years and we had this kind of knockdown, drag out fight. And what it had to do with was scheduling. Is I had a work blitz scheduled. I was going to be out of town. I wasn't paying attention to the calendar. I'd scheduled it over the top of something that was really, really important to her. And it kind of had all come to a head at that point. And I'll never forget what she said. She said, I'll never leave you, but I will mentally leave you if you can't figure this out. And so while I say she hated the job, she actually didn't hate the job. She hated my lack of ability to be planned ahead and well thought out, and to pay attention to her needs and to make sure that I'm scheduling around those as much as possible. And so number one is absolutely critical. And so whether it's a family member like parents or a girlfriend, or especially those of you that have a spouse, you will never be a 200 or 300 account rep. You will never run 1,000 or 2,000 or like tag a 4,000 account operation if you can't be planned out and have the full support of your loved ones. And so you have to be a master of your calendar. I've been sat in trainings with Derek, and he preaches this all the time. And you guys have noticed that success leaves clues. If you talk to the most successful people in the industry, they talk all the time about the importance of calendar. So you need to be planned out 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. Vivint, we're planning a year out, at least, at minimum a year out. But a 200 account rep looks at his entire year, and he goes through and marks out all of the really important things. And that's where we kind of come to number two, which are really things like the big rocks, right? Company events, you got to make sure you're in attendance, right? If there's a blitz, that's number 4, you're on it. If there's a team activity, you're attending it. And so you kind of have these big rocks, which are going to be all of these, planned out and scheduled events where you're hitting the team activities, you're planning on the company events, you're attending all the blitz trips, and then the rest of your life, I promise, will fill in around that. And if there are things in your life that are like a 10 on the personal front, then some of the job stuff needs to take a back seat. But especially while you're starting out, I'm telling you that you have to have your calendar dialed, and you have to review it weekly, every single week with your spouse, and talk about it all the time. Hey, I have this coming up 2 weeks out. I have this coming up 30 days out. And then the next week, you're reminding them again, so that there's never, ever frustration on the home front. I actually think that some of the most talented salespeople that have ever darkened the door at Vivint no longer work here because they just could not figure out how to get the support at home. And I'm often blown away that when I get in the weeds, those people that are maybe struggling in their marriage, or they feel like the job is the problem, it's just that they're not good planners and they're not good communicators. In that same vein, 200 account reps or 300 account reps, 100 account rep can just show up, and they can just be talented enough, and they were just kind of blessed with these spiritual gifts that they can communicate, and they're charismatic, and they're kind of like a chameleon. But if they don't work hard, they'll never make it to 200. The 200 account guys are at every company event, right? They do spend a lot of time around the corporate office or around the best people in the space. And if there is a team activity, they're always there. They're always so supportive. 200 account reps are not just kind of by default good leaders. They're also really, really good followers. These are the people that you just want to spend time around. And if that's not you, then you need to start working on your personal capital so that you're that person that people want to be around. Because not only does that work inside of work, it works on the doors, right? If you can't figure out how to be a good person around the people that you work with, how to be, someone that's studied, that has something to say, that is learning about something, that is interested in other people, that can ask about others, families and that kind of thing, you're never going to dominate on the doors. You can be a 100 account rep, but I don't know you'll ever make it to 200. And then, of course, lastly, like they're the person that's always working. And when they're working, you never have to wonder if they're working. It's Dwayne Johnson that said, show up early and be the hardest worker in the room, right? And then finally, you can't have a millionaire mindset with a minimum wage work ethic. So if you're the one that's showing up right as the meeting starts, and you're getting on doors an hour late, and you're finding every excuse to quit early, and you're the one that's distracted on the doors, you just don't deserve it. Kobe, he'd take the last shot because he knew he earned it. He knew that he deserved it when others didn't. I'll talk more about that as we go here. So here's some best practices. 20% of your annual goal should be sold in the preseason. If for you, and I can tell you this, all of the years that I sold over 300 accounts, which was a lot of them, I almost always had 60 preseason accounts. Almost always. I went back and looked at the data, and that was when I was building this presentation to say, how many accounts did I have so that I could make it here? And so if you're running the 100-yard dash, why would you plan to run it from the end zone? Why would you not want to start on the 20-yard line? And so if you're serious about your goals, and if it is 200, you've got to have 40 preseason accounts. And I know this is what it is for me, and I'll bet the data is true. If I looked at a lot of people, there are probably some 200 or 300 account reps that have less. But again, like, what yard line do you want to start the 100-yard dash on? Why would you not give yourself every opportunity to start early? On top of blitzing, you should be local knocking Fridays and Saturdays. Now, I'm talking not just to the 200 account reps, but those that are serious about leadership. When Eric and I started in the business, and for whatever reason, it's just not a big part of Vivint culture anymore. We had Super Saturdays, where every single Saturday we would meet at Vivint. We would run a really good training meeting, and then we would take everybody out on doors in Utah or in Arizona or wherever it was that we were living, and we would go out and we would knock for a certain number of hours. For my groups, it often wasn't an entire day. It was a training opportunity for me to get people out for 4, 5, 6 hours. If I were doing it now and I was, training teams now, I would just knock the entire Saturday. I would go all the way until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or however late, you can get away with knocking kind of in your areas. We think that we can't work unless we're blitzing. And I have guys that work with me that can't seem to knock a door in their home state. They want to go out to an entirely different market and knock. And it's just not true. I think the first 10 accounts I ever sold in my career were people that lived in the same neighborhood as me. I just made sure to skip the ones that I went to church with. But if you haven't been local knocking, if you're not taking advantage of Fridays and Saturdays, why not? Because if you're serious about that 20%, you're going to go out and do that. And then again, I already mentioned this, but knock until a time, not to a number of sales. And so whether you're on a blitz trip or even if you're local knocking, why would you knock until you just get one? Even if you're saying, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to rip deals for 6 hours. If you sell 3, awesome, right? You're going to work for 6 hours. If you sell 0, doesn't matter. You're working for the 6 hours. And it's the same thing for us in the summers. 200 account reps, they always work to the bell, right? They always work to the whistle. That should be like rule number 1, right? Kind of Dwayne Johnson, I already read. You show up early and be the hardest worker in the room. Okay, a little bit more on just some good habits. If a 200 account rep, it's Groundhog Day. They have a morning routine, they have an on-the-door routine, and they have an evening routine. And, is this one size fits all? Does the same routine, does every 200 or 300 or 400 or 500, because we got a whole bunch of those now, 500 account reps, do they all share the same routine? Absolutely not. The rule here is just that you simply have one. And I'll never forget, I set the rookie record my first year. I sold 276 accounts. And the very next year, 2 people beat my rookie record. And Eric will remember these guys, but it was Troy Gokeritz and it was Reno Mendenhall. And I'll never forget, I was sitting in a training just like this. And, Reno just beat my record. I'm like, what in the world is this guy doing that I'm not? And he talked about his morning routine. He talked about how he woke up at the same time. He ate Captain Crunch every single morning. And then he'd read his scriptures. And then he'd read a little bit about sales. He'd work out in the gym for a minute. And then he'd show up for the meeting. And I'm like, this dude's selling 300 and he's eating Captain Crunch every single morning. But he's almost religious about it. I'm eating Captain Crunch. That's what I'm eating. Don't care what your morning routine is as long as you have one. I've been in sales offices where people they show up to the office and I can tell they just rolled out of bed. Like shame on you. If that's you, it's never going to fly. You're not serious about the job and you're going to leave a lot of opportunity on the table. They have an on-the-door routine, right? And the most important one is that you're on the 200 account rep. They are generally the first one on doors. And I mentioned it earlier, you never, ever have to wonder if they're working. The best reputation you can have in your office is that no one ever has to wonder if you're working, right? There are certain guys in each of our organizations that I just never have to wonder if they're knocking a door, if they're working hard, if they're not being distracted, right? Mark Bench, right? Another one. I'm pulling out all the old G's here, Eric. Mark Bench, I still have a training of his somewhere. And he said that his routine was he would never allow himself to check the mobile report until he had sold his first account. And then he wouldn't allow himself to check it again until after his second deal. And so that was kind of his thing. no, like zero social media. Nobody is calling you or texting you, and your spouse should know this, right? If somebody needs you, it's a 911 phone call. The high producing, high caliber reps are not being distracted on the doors. Because if you're walking up to the door and you're texting someone or you're searching social media and you miss the fact that they have an ADT sign in the yard, or you miss the fact that there's a Ring doorbell camera or there's an Arlo camera, and you miss that little detail, that was the inch that you needed to get the deal. You don't deserve it. And so you cannot be distracted. All of a sudden, the best ones don't just have a good morning routine, but their door routine is that this is sacred hours between, whenever you're starting, which in the summertime for us is 2 until dark 30. That might be 9:30. It might be 10:30 where you're not going, but you're in church. Your phone is on silent. If someone needs you, they better be dead, dying, or bleeding out before you're distracted enough to take those calls. Because the best guys, that they don't do that. They get ahead while everyone else is being distracted. And then a really good evening routine. A good evening routine starts out generally with being the last person in the house, right? Again, you should be known not just as someone that nobody ever has to wonder if you're outworking everybody else, but they should hate being in your car group because you're always in a late night deal. And then of course, you're getting home, you're getting ample sleep, your diet is good, you're eating the right things, all that. So in the summer, again, I've already touched on some of this stuff. Hand on a door before 2 p.m. on weekdays and 9 a.m. on Saturdays. Unpopular opinion. And let me tell you this, all my years, I had 10 years that I ran and knocked, like my sales teams that I was actually running before I became a regional. 10 years of starting on Saturdays at 10 a.m. When I transitioned to a regional and I was traveling to visit teams, I would usually have a flight out on Saturdays. And so what I started doing, because I still needed to sell my accounts, because believe it or not, when you become a regional at Vivint, you take a pay cut. And that again, another training for another day, but I had to continue to sell personal accounts. I still had to keep selling around 200 accounts to try and keep my income, because when I give up a full office with full overrides, like you're just taking an income hit. And so I started getting on doors at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, and I was blown away at the results. If you're getting on doors by 10, a lot of people have left the house. And so for those of you that are, running sales offices, I would encourage you, like this summer, get your people on doors by 9 a.m. Hand on a door by 9 a.m. and see what the difference is. And then we're always knocking until dark 30. Dark 30 means that all you can see inside of houses is lights on. It's pitch black dark, streets lights are on, and you only know people are home because the lights are on. And those are generally the houses that we're knocking until we get picked up by a car group. You can eat the well, it just has to be one bite at a time. And let me explain it this way. You need to be thinking about the day in the form of milestones being from 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 8 until dark 30. And your goal, there's a lot of different goals that you could have. For me, what worked was I wanted to do one qualified presentation in each of those timeframes. Qualified presentation doesn't mean that they passed credit. It just simply means they were a decision maker that could buy or die. Like I could take them all the way through the sales process and either close them or not. And the very best, the 200 account reps, they have short-term memory loss, just meaning that once 4 o'clock hits, so if I'm on doors before, like I'm never knocking a door past 1:59, right? Because that's a sin. I don't want to be a sinner. I want to be on doors before 2. By 4 o'clock, I forget what has happened. If I sold 2 before 4, doesn't matter. 4 to 6 is my next milestone. That's all that I'm focused on. Okay. And then you kind of get it, right? So 2-hour increments. Saturdays are bananas because you're 9 to 11. If you want to sell 5 on a Saturday, and again, as Uncle Rico, I'll tell you, my last 5 years, I averaged 5 accounts on Saturday. You just put me on the board for 5 accounts on Saturday. It was happening. And it was largely because of this milestone piece. I knew I had to have a deal before 11. The most important deal of the day is the deal by 11 o'clock on a Saturday, because then the wind is at your back for the rest of the day. So it looks a little bit different. It's 11 to 1, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 7. And then I would usually go 7 to 8. I'd try and fit another one in, and then 8 until dark 30. And if you're presenting and you're getting the looks, and on Saturdays, I don't have to stress how important those are. You guys already know, but you just got to break the day down however it makes sense to you in your head. And it could be, I mean, for me, it was qualified presentations. For you, it could just be people talk to. It could be number of doors, that you've knocked on. Whatever metric charges your battery, make sure you know what that is, and you break the day down into milestones where you've accomplished a certain thing. And no victory laps. And this is important. As soon as you sell an account, as soon as that happens, you should be sprinting to the next door, right? You know, the law of momentum is that it's really hard to get it going, but once it's rolling, it's almost impossible to stop. And that's why it's so important. If you get a deal between 2 and 4, you don't sit on the curb. You don't go to the gas station and get a Red Bull. You don't call your girlfriend so she can tell you how pretty you are. You stay 100% focused, because you know the best time to sell another account is immediately after you've already sold one. And so you're sprinting from door to door. Instead of walking on sidewalks, you're crossing the lawn. Like, you should be hauling ass to the next deal because it is waiting right around the corner. Your confidence level is a 10. Do not waste the momentum. Okay. Bruce Lee once said, I don't fear the man that knows 1,000 kicks. I fear the man that knows one kick he's practiced 1,000 times. So 200 account reps, they close the same way every single time, right? If you guys maybe heard me talk about this before, like the door approach, everyone gets really good with the door approach. Why do they get so good with door approach? Because it's the thing that they do all day long, right? The 200 account reps, they have practiced their closes over and over and over. So it's the kick that should be feared because they've thrown it 1,000 times. And that's why the best ones, they just close the same way, because they'll get the results that they want. If you guys are getting to the close and you feel like you're pulling an answer out of the air, like randomly, or you're just hoping that they're going to say yes, and you're not actually asking for the order, or you're just saying something like, so what do you think? It's total amateur hour. I don't know that you'll ever even sell 100 accounts. 100 account rep will at least ask for the order in some way, but 200, 300, 400, 500 account reps, they are surgeons. They have their very specific closes with the very specific wording, and they've used it 1,000 times. They've practiced in the mirror. They've practiced in front of the groups. They've practiced while they've been recording themselves on their phone so they can hear their metaverbal communication, make sure they don't have sales breath. They've practiced on their wives, right? And they've used the close thousands of times inside of customers' homes, and they've gotten measurable results, so they know how to combat the objections. And I gave that objections training, but want to be able to close a certain way and become really, really good at the word tracks, so that you're really good at going into overcoming objections, asking again. And that's why you need to know 4 that you're really well, really like practiced and rehearsed with. And, I gave that training last year, and somebody probably has it, or I could come on another time and give you what for me in all my years were my 4 closes. And I think it has been helping some of you guys. Okay. I want to move into some urgency here. Now you guys have like real concessions, and I'm going to, use one of those here in just a second. But right now you guys have got 4 months of free service. Again, that's another thanks to Eric. Like, Eric was actually the one that talked the company into offering promotions for us as a sales force. And I've loved it, because for all those years, I had to make up my own concessions. And now you guys have these really tangible tools to use to create urgency inside of the home. So let me say it to you this way. The most effective ways that I ever found to create urgency so that I could be a 2 or 3, 300 account rep was I used competitions to close, coupled with a concession. Now, let me kind of help you out a little bit further here. Oh, I actually want to make a note before I move into urgency. And this is where I'm getting into like a tool for you guys to use, just so that it's not just a bunch of mindset stuff. I can't stress this enough. The best close is just an excellent presentation. Okay? If you guys are trying to close a customer and you have no idea what they're interested in, you're an amateur. You're a total amateur. It's like showing up to the car dealership and the guy at the dealership doesn't ask you a single question, and he's just starts walking around showing you random vehicles. It seems like it would be absurd, but so many of you do that. So many of you show up and you're like, hey, look at this cool camera. Hey, look at this doorbell camera. Hey, look at this door sensor. And you ask no questions to find out why they might be interested. And they're too nice to tell you to shut up and go away. And so they just sit there and let you talk. And you've spent 30 minutes and you find out that it's like the oldest son and they don't even like own the house. Or worse, you're talking to a one-legger and you get down to the end. You have no reason why they would buy the service, and you're trying to ram this thing down their throat, and their significant other that they would never make a buying decision without isn't even around. And so while urgency is really important, if you fail during the presentation process, you're just a high pressure sales guy or gal. And please don't be that, because all you do is ruin it for everybody else. You just simply ruin Vivint's reputation. You ruin the door for the next guy that's going to come through. Please be a professional. Do a good quality presentation where you uncover a hot button. You find out that what they're really interested, like where the pain is, why the service fits for them, and then you present it in a way that they can't not buy from you. And I've already said this, amateurs cut corners. They don't do a good presentation, and then they're just a crappy high pressure salesperson at the end. So your competition word track is simply this. Mr. Customer, look, you can buy Vivint anytime, next week, next month, next year. You know, it might be the same deal, might be a little more expensive, might be less. I don't know. You'll just never find me more motivated than I am right now. Okay, I've used this. I've said these words 1,000 times. It's that Bruce Lee quote. I've said this so many times, and we could dive into the mental part of this, but it's basically my way of saying, hey, I'm here to do business right now. You know, you can get this whenever. You'll just never find me more motivated than I am while I'm here. You're the boss. You're going to tell me yes or no, but I'm going to make you an offer that you can't refuse, right? Any word track like that, just saying, hey, you're never going to find me more motivated than I am right now. And I'm actually going to back up to this because you're going to couple it with this. I'm currently in a sales competition at work. There's 7 of us on the team and I have to do my part. And so what I'm going to tell you is that while you can buy this anytime, you'll never find me more motivated. I'm here because I want to get my points on the board. Okay, who's your favorite sports team? It's the Atlanta Braves. Okay, well, the Atlanta Braves, guess what? Today we're playing the Padres. Okay, do we love or hate the Padres? We freaking hate those guys. So I need you to help me get my RBI single on the board here so that we can beat the Padres. What do you say? And if you'll do that, if you'll help me get the point on the board, then I will do this. And that's where we're going to do a concession. Okay, if you'll help me get my points on the board while I'm here so that I don't have to come back another time, I'll cut the install fee by $50. Okay, let's do it. Let's get our points on the board. Who do you want as your first emergency contact? And that's the close, right? And the magic of creating just a little bit of urgency and asking for an emergency contact. A 200 or 300 count salesperson actually fully expects a no right here. I would always be really surprised when people just say yes. They're like, cool, yeah, you're going to call me first, and then you're going to call my wife. Like, I would tell you that probably 30% of your deals are going to be that way. The other 66%, you should be getting an objection. And rather than an objection taking the wind out of your sails, you should be like, hey, this is awesome. I'm one step closer to getting my next deal, right? And then we go into the overcoming objections part. I double down on I double down on the competition, double down on the concessions, overcome it, and go right back to the close. Again, kind of another training for another time. But I'm hoping that you guys are getting at least a piece of this. And I probably should have started this with this, but with any sales training of mine, especially you guys listen to, I don't want you to revamp everything you're doing. Please don't do that. It would be reckless for you to do it. I'm simply giving you an idea or two that you can implement into what you're already doing that's going to work. So in closing, you got to get that daily door knocking routine dialed. It just has to be there, and you have to have the support at home, right? So these closes, and what I would say specifically is rolling in with the competition, and then kind of bolstering that up with a concession of some kind And again, like right now, you guys have 4 months of free service. And what I'd probably do is just go in for the close, and if they give you an objection, you guys can discount the install fee. You guys can give away a free piece of equipment. You could do 4 free months of service. Like, you have so many tools in your arsenal that are really pretty new to Vivint that we didn't have just a few years ago. And maybe that's why you guys are selling 4, 5, and 600 accounts now, is because we just have so many other ways of creating urgency. And finally, the last two here, and then maybe we can open it up for a few questions, is think bigger. If I'm guilty of anything in my career, it's that I just thought too small for too long. All right. I started out in this job thinking, hey, I want to have a house paid off, $50,000 in the bank, and some passive income from a real estate portfolio. And in 5 years, I had accomplished that. And I didn't raise my sights until I'd kind of gotten there. I think you really want to be thinking like a 10-year landscape. If you start thinking about things from a 10-year landscape, those of you that have kids, 10 years from now, how old's your kid going to be? It's like a different planet. If you think of this as a career for you, 10 years from now, what do things look like? And the reason that's important is because you're going to make better decisions today, right? At Vivint, if you're saying, hey, I'm here, I'm planting my flag, and I'm going to do this thing for the next 10 years, you do things differently. You represent the brand and yourself and your sales office differently than if you think, hey, I'm just going to try this thing out for a year. But trick yourself by saying, hey, I'm going to be here for 10. Doesn't mean you will be, but your decisions will be different today. And then finally, like, you are worthy of your success. I don't know who needs to hear this, but some of you grew up in circumstances or around family or people and you don't maybe feel like you're worthy. My grandfather was illiterate, and my entire family was very blue collar. They all worked road construction. They all left the house, 3 or 4 a.m. and then they got home after 6 or 8. And to me, I just felt like for a long time, that's what I was destined for. And I actually didn't feel worthy of the success that I had early in this job because I had this poor man mindset. I have imposter syndrome, right? Even today, there's times where I don't feel worthy of the blessings that I've received doing this job. And what I'm telling you is that if you guys will go out with a 200 type mindset, if you put in the hours, if you show up early, if you become an expert in your craft, if you're doing the best presentations, if you're closing and creating urgency the way that I'm suggesting, you are worthy. And you are the one. You're kind of the one that's going to change the family tree forever. And you're going to make the money and have the experiences and have the lifestyle and have the family that maybe that you didn't have and you were envious of when you were younger. And you're absolutely worthy of it. So, and it's my prayer for all of you that you'll choose to go and do that.
Hey, Kenny, can I ask you a couple of questions before maybe we give everyone a few minutes? And guys, we'll try to be done with this. Done. We have guests occasionally hop on here that have been selling for enough years to be really good at the job and to speak as qualified sales professionals. You were able to do that like 15 years ago. When we get someone like you on, we get this unique chance to hear from someone about what it's done for your life. So if that's okay, just a couple questions just to get real. I would love to hear, just in the last few years, you've been doing something like this for a career, and these guys can do that. Some of the guys on the call and gals might think I'm doing this for a year, 2, 3, and it's going to be a stepping stone to what's next for me. And if that's you, that's okay. My brother was my top rookie like 15 years ago. He made $100,000 his first summer doing this, and he never came back. Just went to academics and excelled, and I was so happy for him. So if that's your path, that's all right. But some of you will do this for a decade, and it'll change your life. Kenny, the last few years, something that like you were doing with your family, or you were able to do for someone else's family, or something where you're like, Vivint, my hard work, the sacrifice that my wife put in back in the years, everything that we've done has led up to my ability to do stuff like this. And it feels really special. I'm sure you've had a few cool opportunities like that. Can you think of one that's worth sharing?
I've become very well traveled. I haven't even kept track of how many different continents and how many places that I've visited. But when I look back and think of all of the different experiences that I've had that have made my life worth having. Or when I look through like a family photo album, I'm blown away at the opportunities that have been open to me. And the majority of those have been through doing this job. And while it's slightly different right now with international travel, and we'll get back to that, but just the different countries that we've been able to, go to as a family to impact lives have shaped my kids. All of my kids are so giving and so charitable and so happy to help. And they all know how to work, in large part because we've just gone on the Vivint Impact trips. And that my kids have been able to donate their own dollars and time and talents to go and help other people. While it's like, yeah, we do that, once a year, sometimes twice in our community. Like when you add in the Sub for Santa stuff, and that's a really key part of our culture as a family that we do every single year. It's something we really, really look forward to. I have Vivint to thank for all of that, because if I was doing anything else, I just would have never had those types of opportunities opened up to me. Outside of the impact stuff, which, when you ask me about how's it impacted my family and what's been like, that's tip top of the list. And I could go through a bunch of experiences and why it was a real spiritual thing for us. And it's one of our core values now as a family, is just that we give back. But, my wife has had a dream her entire life to see Scotland and Ireland. And I was able to make that happen for her this last year. It was a gift that I gave her for Christmas. Booked it all. ChatGPT is unbelievable if you've never traveled with ChatGPT. But to be in a spot where it doesn't matter what the trip costs, because it's a bucket list thing for my spouse, and to just be able to go all out and ball all out and spend the money and go to these places and see these things and stay in the hotels, and to be there living in the moment, thinking about how grateful I am to be able to do something like this. You just can't put a dollar value to that. And so for those of you that are coming into this saying, hey, I want to make enough money to do this thing, you should absolutely make enough money to do that thing. And then you should go and ball all out. And then you should set your sights on something else. So I think what I'm saying, Eric, is a thing for me has really been just travel and seeing the world. Like when I was growing up, a really big vacation for us was going to Lagoon here in Utah. Like I didn't ride on an airplane until I was 16 years old, and we went to Disneyland in California. Like it was my cousins. I don't even know how many flights my kids have been on different countries. And so anyhow, long answer, and I've to your question, but for sure it's that part, the being able to, and not just that, but I'll just give you a little example. My brother-in-law, he's my oldest brother-in-law. He has some kids that are immigrants, and they're from Haiti, and he has raised them like a father. They're a single mom. There's 6 of these kids, and he's raised them for the last, I don't even know what it's been. It's probably been 5 or 6 years. His wife was watching them during the day while the mom was working. He's just become kind of their dad. And every Christmas, we're able to help. Every Christmas, he just knows that we're pitching in to buy these kids Christmas. And it really means a ton to him, and it means a ton to his family. And anytime someone asks for help, I don't even have to think about it. And my wife knows if anyone asks us for any help for their family or for the holidays, the answer is yes. She has an unlimited budget. She can help as many people as she needs. And it feels really good to be in that position where I just know that I can help, and I'm never worried about where the dollars are going to come from. And in that thread, if you're not used to giving, it needs to be part of who you are, because every dollar you give, you're just going to get 10 of them back. And Eric, I know you'd echo that. Like there's something with giving money away that the universe just figures out a way to give it back to you. So sorry, Eric, go ahead.
That's great. Service and travel are kind of my takeaways on that. And they both feel significant. I'm sure there's been some more vain, temporary, just kind of spontaneous fun. You buy a gun that you think is pretty cool, but it definitely doesn't have the meaning that like an international service trip with your family would mean. One more question for you, and then maybe I'll see if I've got a message from somebody else on a question they'd like me to address.
Sure.
There's probably a day when, probably not lately because you're more grounded and things are planned out for a few years at a time and you're a little bit more in control. But maybe 2 years, 3 years into the job, where you're standing on the street in the rain, and your friend is off doing this thing where he's got his tie and he's on Wall Street, and he's doing that thing, and someone else is finishing their medical degree, and you're out there just pounding on doors in the rain. Was there a day like that? Can you remember those moments and thinking, am I really going to do this? And then you did it, and what kept you in it?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. A whole bunch of those days, preseason trips, during the summer. I'll never forget. There was one time, it was during a really big sales competition. It was basically the equivalent of, I forget what we changed the name to. It was the Premier League, but for us, it was Car Wars. And I was so sick, pulled over, side of the road, throwing up. And I sold 3 that day. And I had food poisoning or something. I had a time where I couldn't get rid of, long story. I got elbowed in the nose and it broke my tear duct, and I got pink eye because my eye couldn't drain correctly. And I would just tell people all the time, I'd lie. I'd just say I got poked in the eye and my eyes I full on had pink eye, in their house. And there were times where I thought, this is crazy. I'm a grown ass man. I'm out here knocking doors. I should be above this. Here's what was crazy is that anytime I would feel this sense of entitlement in the job, I knew that something big was about to happen. I was either about to land a really big recruit. I was about to sell a door. Almost every time I felt this sense of despair or self-doubt, success was always around the corner. And I got to where I kind of recognized the devil on my shoulder, whispering things into my ear, and I would just always put it away. And I think that Eric's kind of answer too is what got me through that was I would always plan a really big and badass trip. And Eric knows, you guys can probably see him too. I have to have my desktop charging, but I've got deer in the background. I would always have a big hunt planned in the fall. I'd always have a really badass vacation planned with my family. And so when the times were tough in the summer, I always had something to look forward to in the fall. And I'd trick myself. And so those moments, I would recognize that I had success just around the corner. It always was every single time. But I'd also give myself something to look forward to later. The trip, the hunt, something fun I was going to do with my kids, maybe even a purchase. Sure. I've bought lots of cool stuff that was a reward for myself for doing a good job. So you guys just have to know what makes yourself tick and then trick yourself by making plans in the future so that you have something to look forward to and you're something you're working for. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think it's easier now that we've been doing the job for a while, and the I don't know, the highs and lows, well, to be honest, lately it feels like a lot of highs, but it doesn't sway you as much. You feel good about what you've done and you're more solid. But I remember as my first couple years, it was so emotional. And there were just times when I'm like, I know this is working, but can I really keep doing this? This is just not what I imagined. I was going to be an orthodontist, and I felt like, and there's nothing wrong with being an orthodontist. If my kids decided to do that, I'd be fully supportive and I'd be excited for them that you can do that, right? But I was a door-to-door person, and I was making an impact, and I had guys on my team that needed me, and I knew it was working. But there were just some days out there on the streets where I was like, what am I doing? And of course, it's brought a lot of blessings and community and impact to a lot of people. Guys, speaking of 23-year-old Kenny, what would you tell him? We'll close on that.
Yeah. I love this. I would tell him that no one is coming to save him. The government is not coming to save you. Your church is not coming to save you. Your family is not coming to save you. Eric's not coming to save you. Vivint's not coming to save you. If you are going to rise or die on your merit alone. And when you decide and make the decision that everything good or bad that happens to you and your family or your future family is 100% your responsibility, your life will change forever. And the blame game or playing a victim or your manager not loving you or treating you right or your girlfriend, not giving you 100% or your wife not giving you 100% is 100% your responsibility. You have to be all in, all time, all day. And when you make that decision, life is different. When I decide good or bad, what's happening to me, I'm 100% responsible. I'm a better dad, a better husband, a better salesperson. I'm a better sales leader. I'm a better person in my community. I'm a better follower of Jesus Christ. I'm more responsible, like in my spiritual endeavors. I'm more giving. And so that's I guess the blessing I'll want to leave with you guys is take 100% responsibility for what happens in your lives. Much love and respect to everyone.